a chicken cooker today. This is a Ceramics 2 project. And when do you guys want to grab me the chicken cooker over there? Just grab me one that's already made. So I learned how to do this by a guy named Bud Meekum, and he makes a lot of stuff like that was made in the 1800s. So this is called a chicken cooker, and one of the problems when you cook chicken is if you want to make the outside crispy, normally the inside is going to be a little more dry. And if you want the inside to be nice and moist, the outside is not going to be crispy. So a chicken cooker, or a chicken cannon, you could call it, solves that problem because you put oil, water, and seasonings in this cavity and in this little cup here, and then you put the chicken's neck, the chicken's neck is cut off, and you slide the cavity over this. And so when the chicken cooks, the water is boiling and it keeps the meat inside moist, but the outside gets nice and crispy. So the requirements for this assignment is this needs to be about 10 inches wide, and clay shrinks to about 12%. So this will be about 8.5 inches or this size by the time it's been glaze fired. So first thing you need to do is I'm going to be starting with 8.5 pounds of clay, and that'll be about this size or maybe a little bit larger. You can make one a little bit larger or a little bit smaller. For this class, I don't want you using any less than 8 pounds though. That's the minimum requirement for this project. So what I'm going to be doing is, and by the way, this inside needs to be, this little cup inside needs to go on an angle. So when you slide the chicken's cut off head or the cavity over this, it fits on there. But the opening needs to be in between 2.5 and 3 inches. So just like other projects you make, you're gonna throw it on the pottery wheel, you're gonna bring it up into a cone, and then this is something I'm gonna teach you guys how to do that you haven't learned in the past. So normally when you center something, you take your left hand here, you push down, you take your right hand and use your wrist to force the clay into the centered mode. What I would like all of you guys to do right now is take your right hand and put it on the back, your left hand, and put it on the back of your right hand, just like that. You see that? Now instead of using my wrist to center the clay, I'm actually going to use this section of my right arm. So I'm going to be pushing down, and you want lots of water, like you're going to have to repeat this because lots of water on there. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to use my arm to push down, and that saves your wrist, so you don't get like carpal tunnel in your wrists. Makes it a little bit easier. All that clay. So this is really soft clay right now. Normally I could just use my wrist, but any harder clay, you normally just want to use your arm. Makes it a little bit easier. I need a sponge. Here's a sponge. Someone gonna give me a little sponge around here anywhere? Thank you. So, what I'm gonna do, you wanna center it. So it's about that right there is about 9 inches, and that's good because the base will be a little bit smaller than the rim. So what I'm gonna do is I'm going to push down. Normally to make an entry hole, you go right in the center. I'm not going to go in the center. I'm going to go about 1 inch over from the center, and that's where I'm going to push down. Okay? So I'm going to push down. And mind you, this clay is really soft right now. Normally it's not this soft. I actually prefer it to be harder, but this is what I have right now, so this is what I'm using. So I want this to be about 10 inches, maybe a hair bigger. And that right now is like about 11 inches. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna recenter this piece of clay. As you can remember, I take my left hand, push on it, and then I take my right hand and almost make a claw. And I'm actually gonna pull with just like that, because and when you pull up a big piece of clay, you want to make sure that you're pushing down pretty hard on that rim as you're pulling, and that's what's going to keep it centered. Okay. All right, so what we're going to do now is, that's a little bigger than I think it needs to be. So I'm going to take off just a little bit of this clay. So I'll take that little baby off. Yeah, and so these, you'll notice on this project, this one's going to be a little thicker than I normally make my projects. And that's because this is going to be used for cooking. You're putting this in the oven, you're taking it out, you're setting it on your granite counter. It might be or cement, and it might be, you might be dropping it, you know, you just want to make it a little bit harder. Now this needs to be made out of stoneware because it is going to be used for thermal shock. This will be fired at cone 5, which is actually the best, it's the most durable pottery is fired at cone 5. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to push down directly in the center of this. Push down directly in the center. You want to get closer, like scoot your seat up and get like a close up on this, so when people are watching online, they can see my beautiful face and make me famous. Just kidding. I'm just joking. But anyways, I'm gonna pull up that little cavity. I'm gonna cut a section of it off because I don't think I need that much. And then make the inside. I don't like to have any sharp edges or corners with stuff that I cook with, just because when you clean it, it's a little bit harder. So let's see the size of this. Size of that's going to be 3 inches. One a little bit smaller than that. Normally, I would say, I would say when you make this project, you want to use bat pins and a bat. Now, Faith, would you mind grabbing me a bat pin out of that fish pot, and then 2 bat pins and a bat? I'm going to show you guys how to use it really quick. So this is pretty much my project. Now, this is the hardest. This is one of the harder parts. What I want to do is for the rim. See how this one you can hold this pot like this because it has that rim right there. I want that rim on this one, so when I pick it up and it's hot, it doesn't slide out of my hands. So all I'm gonna do is take my sponge and I'm gonna push directly underneath that, and then I'm gonna push down.
Where do you want this?
Right there, if you get the bat pin, sweet. Okay, so if you look, get that like horizontally, so you can see that baby. See that little guy right there? Now you can pick it up and it'll be good. I'm gonna take my red rubber rib, go over it, make it nice and smooth. Now with this project, you want to be spinning it really slowly. Like, you don't want to spin it very fast because gravity will want to pull this thing out and make it look like a big old bowl rather than like vertical, right? So just be aware of that. Okay, so this is how, now just say you only get through just say you only get halfway done with your project. The bell rings, what do you have to do? You have to cut it off and throw it away, right? Start over. But if you put them on a bat, you can just, whatever step that you get to on your bat, you can just take this off, and the next class period, you can just put it back on the wheel head. The way that the bats are used is you take bat pins, you stick them in the little holes, just like that. And then grab me a piece of paper towel really quickly, like a small piece. What I like to do is I like to put little tiny pieces of paper towel over these screws. And the reason why, I'll just take like a really small piece and fold it over. with a small piece folded over. And I'll actually put them on those nuts because they, sometimes it likes to rattle a little bit. And it doesn't matter what side of the bat you use, but now that's nice and firm. So if I were to throw a project on here and I only got halfway through it, I could take this off. That's a little on there, a little tight. But anyways, your project would be right there, and then the next class period you can put them on. But this one's a new enough bat, you probably don't need to use the paper towels, but the looser, older bats, you probably need it. So this is a chicken cooker. Start with 8.5 pounds of clay. It needs to be 10 inches wide. The opening of this needs to be around 2.5 inches, and this is what it should look like. So thanks for watching, and I'll see you in class.